You're listening to CX Passport, the show about creating great customer experiences with a dash of travel talk. Each episode, we'll talk with our guests about great CX, travel, and just like the best journeys, explore new directions we never anticipated. I'm your host, Rick Denton. I believe the best meals are served outside and require a passport. Let's get going. Today, we have a treat with two guests on the episode. Gebers, Head of Digital Product and Experience, and Audrey Anderson, User Experience Researcher, both from Republic Finance. I've known Jared for years, having worked with him at a former company. With Audrey, I had the opportunity to meet someone new, which is always a treat for me. In talking with Jared and Audrey, I got this great sense of how user experience and product and customer experience, it's all tied together in their minds. These aren't silos for them. It's all interwoven, the way it should be. What's going to be fun to hear is that they've been a part of the journey to create customer insights at Republic Finance from the beginning. If you're listening and wanting to grow your customer insight strength, they're going to have some great wisdom nuggets for you. And as I say in the intro, how the best journeys take us to places we never expected, I can assure you, I never thought that parking and potties would lead me to wisdom in the user experience space. And I bet you didn't either. More on that later. It's going to be a fun ride. Jared and Audrey, welcome to CX Passport.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Awesome. Well, let's start with just a little context. Saying customer experience is like saying design, right? This wide spectrum. You've got graphic designers, industrial designers, creative designers. Same thing in customer experience. So for the listeners, help set the context of where you are in the customer experience universe. Jared, let's start with you.
Sure, Rick. So my background is in product management. And as you mentioned, my role here is the head of digital product and experience. And that means, for the most part, that I'm accountable for all of our digital experiences, anything that a customer would see on our website or a mobile app, for example. But what that actually means, there's a lot of freedom to define that. And to me, it doesn't mean like just create nice looking websites that maybe are easy to use. To us, and as I formed the group, it really means understanding who our customers are, what they care about, the things that they are looking for in a lender, particularly in our case, and then trying to deliver on that in every opportunity. That extends beyond digital only. Mm-hmm. So we have a bunch of touch points with our branches or over the phone. If we have a deeper insight into our customers, we can meet their needs in digital, and those same insights are often going to apply elsewhere. We're going to learn things that are going to apply outside of digital as well. So like the whole sense of how we win in the marketplace for me is really how well we understand our customers and how well we can deliver on that.
Oh, I really, really like that. That's something that's near and dear to anybody that wants to talk about customer experience in general, but product specifically what you're describing, and that is understand the customer. I love you talking about the touch points and that aspect. We may get into that a little bit later, but Audrey, I want a chance to hear from you as well. So as a UX researcher, how do you see your role in the customer experience world?
I always think of like, okay, my job is to tell a story, like to really, like if I'm talking to 15 customers, how do I then go into a room where I'm trying to, relay a message from a customer and tell it like a story, like take people behind the scenes into like a little glimpse into a customer's life and what it's like to live their life. And then how that translates into some experience they had with us, whether it's online, in the digital space or in a branch or, with a customer service rep, and just like help bring people along with like hopefully a really compelling story about what they experienced and how they really felt about it.
That approach of bringing story into it. And I'm thinking about what Jared just said, and that was the, how are we getting out there into the front lines and beyond the front lines, but just getting deep into the customer and then translating that into stories. I'm thinking about as this whole evolution, and I want to hear more about the evolution, but I've got to imagine that as the company evolved going through its customer insights journey, there had to have been some aha moments. There had to have been some of those, Huh. That story told me something I wasn't expecting. What was that journey to create that customer insights team like? And what were some of those aha moments as you went through that journey to create that team?
The creating part, I mean, the team is just me, so one man team, but
So as you went through your own journey of exploring this.
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, it's one of the things that really excited me the most about coming to Republic Finance was just complete white space. Like I didn't start here and as a widget, basically like fitting in an existing process. It, as I talked to Jared the very first time, like, over a year ago at this point, it was like, wait, there's like, I literally get to take this entire white piece of paper and put a process on it and see how it could actually fit and work and deliver on like what the actual goals are. And then I get to talk to all the customers all the time like that. Like that's it. That's my dream job right there. And so that part was, I mean, a lot of it was really hard because when you're creating something from nothing, it is like, hey, how about this? I don't know. I don't know if that's really going to fit. So Jared and I worked through that. And then from there, it was a matter of like, hey, here's the plan. Here's the process with marketing, with legal, with customer service, with branches, and just seeing if everybody, when they experienced like, here's how we're going to start gathering insights, said, yeah, that makes sense to me. Like that, I can get behind that. How, and even how can I benefit from it later,
Right. I think that one thing you said there has got to be encouraging to a lot of listeners that they may have thought, oh, just like I did. I mean, we already had a pre-call and even I missed out on the team of one aspect of it. And it doesn't take this massive team, this massive universe of people to create these great customer insights, to create this approach, but it is a disciplined journey that you take along the way to get there. Jared, I'm thinking about as that team evolved. Now I say that team, right? That team of one. Even I'm having trouble tripping over my words going back to the team. But this concept of customer insights, as it evolved, there's got to be some times where the company, leaders, people assumed something about the customer. But when you actually listen to the customer, it was something completely different. Anybody really have their mind kind of changed on something as you went through this customer insights journey?
Yeah, for sure. And, it's funny because it's been over a year now since Audrey joined, but I was here for almost 2 years before she joined. And, looking back, it's almost impossible for me to imagine how I lived without having this customer insights function. But as I was like, early 2021, when we were preparing to pitch, our executives for creating customer insights, we spoke a lot about it being a process. Like we actually use the analogy of like a factory, right? We do a bunch of research and on the other end of the assembly line, you get a bunch of insights out of it, and those are going to be valuable for you. And I don't know if, Audrey would agree that it's so stiff. It's like a factory.
Nothing I do is factory-like.
I was going to say, I don't know many customer insights processes that are that formulaic, right?
But I think the process of, or setting up the processes of being able to easily reach out to customers and get various information or do different kinds of studies. That was easy to think of as a process because we knew we needed to have all like set of approvals or like a pocket of customers that we can tap into easily. Things like that would need to be set up in advance. And so that's what Audrey really did a great job of coming in when she says a white space. We didn't have any of that at the beginning. We didn't have any vendors or anything we were using. But I think back in terms of like aha moments or surprises, when we rolled out our very first journey map, there was a kind of a surprise moment for folks. First of all, a lot of them probably have never seen a journey map before.
Right.
But, we focused on one part of our marketing experience and like when people chose to take up the offer and, take out a loan. And a big portion of that journey map was like, hey, that's not like the first step in the process, right? There's a whole lot that happens before that in terms of someone like receives our marketing and they maybe don't know about us. They need to investigate. And they may not actually respond to the first one, but they're still thinking about it. So the whole I think people knew intrinsically the timing matters, but it's maybe not even the first time you hit them that matters.
Yeah.
It's you kind of build towards something, and in the back of their minds, they may have kind of built a knowledge base about Republic Finance, and then suddenly they get the offer at the exact right time, and okay, then it clicks. Okay, I already have some level of trust. Let's do this. But the first time they receive one of our marketing messages, like our primary marketing campaign, like the very first step in the journey map is this kind of like legitimacy question, right? They receive a mail piece. They've maybe never heard of us, or they've never seen a marketing piece like this. We actually created a website to actually address this concern afterwards. So this is the result of the learning. We created a separate web page, and literally the top of the page says, "Yes, it's real." Because we found that people were not always sure, or so they were calling us, or they were doing a Google search, and there wasn't anything on our website for it. So that was one of the kind of really big insights that kind of surprised us.
This is your captain speaking. I want to thank you for listening to CX Passport today. We've now reached our cruising altitude, so I'll turn that seatbelt sign off. While you're getting comfortable, hit that follow or subscribe button on your favorite podcast app so you'll never miss an episode. Love it if you'd tell a friend about CX Passport, leave a review so others can discover the show as well. Now, sit back and enjoy the rest of the episode.
I think that's one of the things that journey mapping specifically, but customer insights in general, can really bring to a company. Think about someone that's not sitting in a customer-facing role. So a finance. Audrey, you mentioned this. How do we interact with legal? How do we interact with finance? How do we interact with all that? And helping them understand that they may be thinking so transactionally. Customer contacts me, that is the beginning of it. Customer signs, that is, customer makes payment, customer processes, whatever that looks like, closes the relationship, all of that. That is, but this idea of the customer's journey extends well beyond that, even before they're even thinking the words Republic Finance or even finance in general, right? Just they have this need, this something that is existing in their life, and that approach to their, I can see how that would have opened the eyes of the company and the team in general, specifically those that weren't necessarily as customer facing. Audrey, I want to ask you about how you interacted with all those teams and all of that. So maybe we'll get to that later, but there's something you said to me in the pre-call that has always sort of sat with me. And it was that UX and product often, well, they're very associated with technical and often sometimes analytical. And yeah, there's a creative element to it as well. But you talked about how you love talking about feelings. We even joked about you being the UX therapist. So as you've gotten the customer on the couch and you're talking to them and getting their feelings out, why are feelings so important to getting that customer experience right?
I just always feel like feelings really stick with people, like that's the thing that sticks with them the longest. It's not, the button color is important and how they got to us is important. But if they come to us and they experience something really delightful, then it sticks. But the same is totally true. Like if they come to us and they experience something that's really upsetting or frustrating or, I don't know, challenging or I don't know, for our customers too, I feel like so often they're coming to us because they genuinely need help right then. And there's a lot of feelings associated just with that, like coming to someone for help, that if they experience something that's negative or frustrating, that's going to stick even more, And
there
so,
was, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there was a former podcast guest, and I think it was Gus who said this, Gus Imhoff, and please forgive me, maybe I'll even edit it later if I get the name wrong, but he's the one who said experience doesn't matter. It's like, wait, what? We're talking about a customer experience podcast. What do you mean experience doesn't matter? He said, the experience itself doesn't matter. It's what the memory of the experience was. So to your point about the color of the button is irrelevant. It was the feeling that they had associated with the color of the button or the operation of the website.
And Jared's story before this, like that was one of the, I think not only one of the first aha moments, like for myself, but also like everyone we shared it with was, when people first received that thing from us, their first experience, I can't tell you, I would talk to person after person after person. It didn't matter if it was a year ago that they had that experience or 5 years ago or last week. It was always two feelings. Oh my gosh, I feel so lucky and blessed that I have this in my hand. Is it real? Like it was those two really strong feelings. And it was, so consistent. And that part of the feeling story was really cool to relay to people who, needed and wanted to hear it in Republic Finance, because it's like, it made it actionable.
Yeah. Ooh, and oh my gosh, we're definitely going to talk about that later, but I want to ask you something. The idea of feelings can be hard for people to talk about, right? So I'm kind of curious, and Audrey, let's start with you, Jared, if you got something to throw in as well, but how do you do this? It's hard enough for people for people to get an authentic voice of the customer in general, but how are you getting down to that feeling level? How do you go about that with customers?
Whenever I'm talking about a customer, I always try my very best to use their name. So like if I'm saying, well, I spoke to this woman, Annika, I'm just making, you know what I mean? Like I say the name. It's not like, oh, well, customers often say they're frustrated when blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't say that. I'm like, well, when I talked to Annika last week, she specifically brought up what we're talking about right now. And that was hard for her. And so I definitely try to use names. I always try to use quotes. And this might sound silly, but like I try to even like use the tone of voice that the customer, like I'm pretty expressive, I'm sure you can tell. And like I try to use like the way that they said it, like, because I feel like the way that they said it, their tone and their emotion and their pace and those things, if I change the way I normally talk into, the way that they tried to convey a message, I think it's more compelling.
And that's when you're summarizing, Audrey, because like you also like use actual recordings.
Right. Totally. Yes. Yeah. Video and audio recordings, depending on, what my methodology is, for sure.
Well, let's actually talk about that. So the idea of that customer's voice, and I still want to ask you, because you didn't reveal your secrets. So it could be that you're hiding your trade secrets there, Audrey. So I'm not going to let you off the hook. We're going to go back to it. But knowing that the company needs you as that source of customer insight, you've already established that, right? The journey got you to that point that they know you're the source of insight. But making sure that they're not hearing Audrey and Jared's opinions. It sounds like you're giving me some insight into how you're already doing that. But how do you bring that customer's voice into the company beyond what you're describing there? It's saying the name Audrey, but rather, these videos, these recordings. How are you getting that customer to where they are living and breathing inside the company and ensuring the company listens to the customer's voice, not Audrey and Jared?
Yep. And tell me if this is, so I'm doing my best, and this part for me is still a process in development, but once a month we have check-ins with executives, and we're able to, I put together summaries of whatever I've, gathered up in the last month, or, however long things took to gather. And so I always do sort of like, here's what we went after, here's what we learned, and show them actual things, whether it's charts from surveys or video or audio quotes or written quotes, where I read them. And then the last thing that I always do is a what we should do slide. So it's like, I'm not just like, hey, here's some super interesting information. It's always, what do we do now? Like, some of it is my opinion. So we sort of as a team then go back and assess like what we decide to take action on. But I never leave it at, here's some super interesting information. It's always what we should do. And then we've done other things too, like there's a biweekly all company communication, and there's a quarterly, all company communication, where we're working to include not only what we've learned, but also what we've done and then what we plan to do as time goes forward. So but I still feel like there's more, like to really get it in like every single part. One cool thing, so not to get too deep into this, but for the very first time, I had someone reach out to me in June and say, hey, I think it would be really helpful if I knew what customers thought about this thing. And it was something about her job. And I was like, yes, it would be, like, let's figure out how we learn. So it was like the first time somebody came to me and said, I think I could benefit from customer insights in what I'm doing. Nice. And then a similar thing happened with someone who's writing blogs for our website. And he's like, you're always collecting interesting stuff, like anything our customers might want, to read about on the website. So that, I think that my hope is that that continues to grow.
That had to be completely validating, like just on that level of just the validation to have suddenly, instead of trying to push, you're actually being pulled.
Yeah.
And having that going forward. I love the idea of bringing that customer's voice in there. Jared, I want to ask you this. So you were at Republic Finance in a world before Audrey and before Customer Insights. How have you seen what she's describing there, this idea of bringing that customer voice in? How have you seen that change things? How have you seen people react differently? How have you seen them craving these customer insights or other areas? What does that look like? How have you seen it changed?
I think just introducing people to the idea of what's possible here was a real game changer for us. Once the first few presentations or insights rolled in, I honestly think like when our CEO attends our monthly catch up, I think this is the part he really wants to hear.
Yeah.
Right. He just craves those insights because they're not coming from anywhere else. And sometimes it'll line up with what the sales team is saying about trends. Sometimes it won't line up exactly right, and we've got to try to connect the dots between what we're hearing and what they're saying. So I think he loves making connections, and all of our executives do. But for me, that's a really big aha for us, is like, okay, we have to make this front and center in what we're talking about, even in just a regular digital update, right? We can talk about all the pages we're building, but we also need to talk about the insights we've gathered. And so that's become a regular feature, as Audrey mentioned, and probably the one that honestly our executives get the most excited about.
Let's do a little change of pace here. Join me in the first class lounge. We'll move quickly here and hopefully have some fun. What is a dream travel location from your past? I'm going to go top of screen. Audrey, let's start with you.
Ireland.
Oh.
Definitely Ireland.
Tell me why.
Mostly, and that hopefully, I'm a big nerd. I got to see the Cliffs of Insanity from The Princess Bride, which are the Cliffs of Moher.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, and I know every single line to that movie from my childhood. So that was... Yeah, that was.
Do we have an episode title now? The one with the Princess Bride. Maybe we'll go with that. So that's awesome, Audrey. Jared, what's a dream travel location from your past?
From my past, so the cop-out answer is just like anywhere where family is. But I think the real answer for me, it would always be somewhere where I go someplace and maybe didn't get to see something I was intending to. So I think I would say Iceland.
Okay.
And it's because a few years ago I went, and the entire idea for me of the trip was, hey, this is the warmest place on earth where you can see the northern lights. And it was rainy and cloudy.
Oh no.
I did not get to see them. So that would be the place I would want to go back.
You got to go back.
Well, I hope it's not the same answer, Jared. We'll stay with you. Dream travel location you've not been to yet.
Oh, for me, that's Rome, for sure. I'm such a big history person.
Yeah.
I took multiple courses in college, not related to my degree, on Roman history. So I have to get to Rome.
Got to get to Rome. I think that's a great idea. Now, I would also tell you, get the heck out of Rome and go see the rest of Italy, because I know that I love the other parts of it as well, but Rome is fascinating. I thought you were going to say a sunny or a cloudless version of Iceland. So I'm glad to hear that it's Rome. Audrey, what is your dream travel location you've not been to yet?
Definitely Midnight Sun in Norway. I want to stay in like one of those little lodges where it's like windows all around and you just like, oh, it looks so amazing. That's my dream.
One of the things I love about doing the first class lounge is the different answers that I get from folks. I've not heard the Midnight Sun option. I've not heard the all glass Norway. So I love it. I love this. I'm just going to bounce back and forth. So Audrey, what's a favorite thing to eat?
Jared's gonna laugh at me. I'm gonna say chips, but only because that means it can be both French fries and potato chips. Jared knows I have an obsession. Every time we talk, I'm like, "Ooh, have you had the fries there? Oh, you're going where? Have you had the fries there?" I'm like,
what a sneaky global answer. I like that, Audrey. Very fitting with CX Passport. Well done, Jared. What is a favorite thing for you to eat?
That was awesome. So my team always makes fun of me that I'll basically eat anything that a 12-year-old would love. So I'm honestly going to say a grilled cheese sandwich, because for me, that is like real comfort food. And it's also probably the most advanced thing I can cook myself.
Oh my gosh, that is fantastic. Well, I'm gonna keep the food order the same. Audrey, what is the thing your parents forced you to eat but you hated as a kid?
So it is stuffed bell peppers, and it's because my sisters would scrape theirs onto my plate when my parents weren't looking, and then I would get in trouble and have to go to bed because I didn't finish my dinner, and they would get to go outside and eat their popsicle. And so there's a lot of, not only did it taste nasty, there's a lot of like emotion wrapped up in that.
Oh my gosh, that's right. Oh, holy cow. Boy, there's a whole nother podcast we can do. The UX therapist and her green
yes.
Yeah. Oh my. I don't think I can touch that any further, but that's fascinating. Jared, what about you? Think your parents forced you to eat, but you hated as a kid?
Yeah, God bless my parents. I was a super picky eater when I was a kid. I mean, they'll tell stories that I used to hate hamburgers because I had to have hot dogs, that sort of thing. Thankfully, I've grown out of that. But the one thing that really, really like I hated most of all, and I still hate, is green beans. I can't stand them.
The vegetable raises its head once again in this section. Absolutely. Jared, what is one travel item, not including your phone, you will not leave home without?
Not including my phone. Probably phone charger is included in that too.
Yeah, you can't say that.
Although I've certainly forgotten it before and it was a disaster. You know, I actually am a big fan of like old-fashioned travel guides. So I actually will bring up like a paper one, like actual book along with me.
Nice.
So I realize I can get a lot of that on my phone, but I still like doing that.
I like that. I've had actually other guests say the same thing, Jared. You are not alone in that. Audrey, what about you? A travel item not including your phone that you will not leave home without?
Moisturizing eye patches, and bonus if they have collagen in them.
You've been on planes, moisturizer matters.
Yes.
Jared, I promised this in the intro. I promised we would talk about parking and potties and somehow tie that to user experience. How on earth do parking and potties provide a model for UX?
So I'll set this up a little bit because this is related to, of course, the last time we chatted.
Yeah.
And I mentioned, and I actually was talking about the trip to Iceland that I had been on recently. And I remember very distinctly seeing a bunch of places, particularly around the airport, where they had these like frowny and smiley face buttons right outside of the bathroom. And, you know, this also ties into the perception thing that we were talking about earlier.
Right.
The execution and the perception of follow through on these really makes all the difference. Right. So I've seen these at other places, but if you see that, if I see that anyway at DFW airport, not knocking DFW, it's probably one of the most efficient airports in the US.
Big fan of it.
But if I see a kiosk like that there, I'm, you know, probably going to think, oh, great, somebody will get a daily or a weekly report with these results. And, you know, they're going to look at that and they're going to say, oh, great, like 65% of people said frowny face. And that's down from 68% last time. We're doing well. Or something like that, right? You know,
and so what? Yeah.
But exactly. And my thinking there is probably based on my other experiences with DFW and particularly the bathrooms being kind of hit or miss there. But in Iceland, at least the one experience I had, the bathroom was absolutely spotless, which really reinforced the data collection for me, because now I think my expectation is going to be met.
Yeah.
Right. I'm thinking, you know, somewhere in the airport, if I hit that frowny face, there's going to be a bat signal and somebody's going to come running to investigate that situation. And it, like I said, it's perception. It doesn't even matter if that's true. I'm comforted by that. And so therefore those buttons impressed me, whereas they would not have at DFW.
I think that's important, though, what you're saying. I hadn't ever really thought of it, at least in one sentence together, but how the results of the experience help inform the user experience. And so the result of the hit or miss bathroom makes you think, I'm not touching that button. First of all, I wouldn't touch the button anyway, but I've heard that there's some hands-free versions of that in bathrooms these days. But if it's a clean potty, then that makes sense. But what about, so that's the potty one, parking?
So here's the tie-in to parking. And this is something that I actually literally just experienced in the past week when I flew through DFW. They've actually started putting these red and green LED lights above the bathroom stalls in some of the like newly remodeled terminals.
Yeah. Okay.
And they signal whether the stall is occupied or if it's free, just kind of like they've had in the parking lot or the parking garages for a few years now. And I thought that was fantastic because, well, first of all, like I know exactly which one is open and not. I don't have to go fumble around. But it also requires absolutely zero explanation for somebody who can see those. Right? I immediately know what a red light and a green light mean, and where I can and can't go, so to speak.
Well played, sir. And that I like that. It's the simplicity of that is something that we've talked about when it comes to user experience, that it doesn't have to always be this incredibly complex thing. It is a red or a green light above a parking space or a potty space or whatever it is, and helping that make the customer's experience so much simpler. And the design is simple, the experience is simple. And I now know why parking and potties will help inform me when it comes to user experience. Thank you, Jared. If I get nothing else out of this. Now, I'm cheating. I'm looking at the clock and I'm shocked, but we are actually out of time. But I don't want to end without asking this. And I think, Audrey, I'll start with you, but I would love both of y'all's perspective on this. And we've talked about how you both have been a part of creating this customer insights journey at the company, the team of one, Audrey, if you will, but the overall concept and culture of customer insights. So you've done this. Have you arrived? Are you done with the journey?
I think there's so much more to do. We literally, we have a couple of journey maps. We have a couple of, I don't know, like maybe we have 200 customer interviews, but there are a million customers. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like the tiniest little fraction of learning has happened. And I think there's so much more to do. And I'm excited to do it.
That sounds good. Yeah, Jared, your perspective?
I agree completely. There's really no such thing as done when it comes to insights. Not only like, are there always more customers to talk to? Like the customers we have talked to may have new experiences that change their thoughts or their feelings. So I think we need to be in a state of perpetual learning. And really, I think the better goal around, or like how to define whether we've arrived or not, it's not whether the work is done, it's whether we've built up enough momentum so that others really come to us for insights. So the story that Audrey shared earlier, I love hearing that.
Yeah.
I love hearing that people want to know about the parts of the business they're close to and how customers are interacting with that. That tells me that people are paying attention to what we're doing and they see the value in it.
Yeah.
And so that kind of becomes self-reinforcing a little bit. To me, that's the closest thing to arriving, but the work is never done.
That's awesome. I love it. And I am so glad, Audrey, that you did share that aspect of the fact that you're now being asked to share these insights. And it's such a softball question. I know, of course, who feels like they've arrived, but it's interesting to hear that even with the successes that y'all have had in place, there's still so much more to do. And I think those listening can be encouraged by that just get started on your journey, right? Just start somewhere and look how much value you can create with the beginning of your customer insights or your voice of the customer or whatever that might look like. If folks wanted to get to know a little bit more about either of you or about Republic Finance, how would they do so?
Well, they're not going to find me too many places other than LinkedIn.
All right.
So they can certainly find me on LinkedIn. Republic Finance is republicfinance.com.
Okay. I'll have all that in the show notes. Audrey?
I'm also on LinkedIn along with various other social platforms. So
all right.
LinkedIn's probably the best.
great. If folks want to know about that customer insights journey and get some insights from y'all, that's the best way to get in touch with you. Thanks so much for talking with me today. The time actually disappeared. There's so much more that I would want to ask you. I'm shocked to see how quickly this went, but thank you for sharing those insights. Those insights about customer insights, very meta, and the journey, and especially kind of getting us into some of the emotional spaces and that sort of aspect of it. Really appreciated that. So thank you, Audrey. Thank you, Jared. It's been a wonderful time today.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's always great catching up, Rick.
Thanks for joining us this week on CX Passport. Make sure to visit our website, cxpassport.com, where you can hit subscribe so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, you can check out the rest of the EX for CX website. If you're looking to get real about customer experience, EX for CX is available to help you increase revenue by starting to listen to your customers and create great experiences for every customer every time. Thanks for listening to CX Passport, and be sure to tune in for our next episode. Until next time, I'm Rick Denton, and I believe the best meals are served outside and require a passport.